Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 20th of Society and Religion. Chapter is Jainism and Buddhism. Topics to be covered are the emergence of Jainism and Buddhism, Jainism, basic teachings, growth and development of Jainism, religious practices of the Jains, Buddhism, basic teachings, Buddhist philosophy and society of that age, the growth, development and decline of Buddhism. The emergence of Buddhism and Jainism. The 6th century BC has left a permanent impress on Indian history mainly because it witnessed an intense preoccupation with philosophical speculation. Jainism and Buddhism represent the most serious and most comprehensive attempt to analyze the rapidly changing society in which it originated. Buddhism created the vision of an alternative society, the possibility of organizing society on different principles from the hierarchical and inegalitarian ideology and practices that had begun to gain ground. The political system at the time of Mahavira and Buddha was characterized by the existence of two distinct forms of government, monarchical kingdoms and clan oligarchies or Gan Sanghas. The geographical location of these units is itself interesting, with the monarchical kingdoms occupying the Ganga-Yamuna valley and the Gan Sanghas being located near the foothills of Himalayas. Territorial expansion and collapse of Gan Sanghas. The process of territorial expansion and the consolidation of the early Indian state was operating at two levels in the age of the Buddha. The monarchical kingdoms of the Ganga valley, especially Kosala and Magad, were each expanding at the expense of their immediate and weaker neighbors, but at the same time they were locked in a struggle for supremacy among themselves in which Magad ultimately triumphed. The Gan Sanghas were the first to collapse, and the smaller ones like the Sakyas and Mallas had already caved in during the lifetime of the Buddha. Political philosophy. The most notable aspect of political philosophy in the age of the Buddha and Mahavir was the completely pragmatic approach to power. Kingship is marked by the absolute and arbitrary exercise of power, with no evidence of effective checks upon the king's ability to impose his will on the dominion. The king had to control over his people and is often depicted as using power in a willful and capricious manner rather than in a legitimate and controlled capacity. Even the law was not applied consistently but in a highly personal and arbitrary way. The literature indicates very clearly that in the process of change, old institutions had collapsed but had not been replaced by others. The collective power of the people of the early society, which had been expressed through tribal institutions, were no longer feasible. New organizations of production. There was a noticeable expansion of the economy and within that of agriculture. Rice cultivation based on transplantation led to a virtual demographic revolution. The Jain and Buddhist texts mention numerous settlements, attesting to an expansion of settlements, the extension of cultivation and of people into unexploited hands. Along with an expansion of cultivation and of people into unexploited hands, there was increased craft production. Numerous crafts are mentioned in the text, as also coinage signifying a money economy, trade and trade routes, and corporate commercial activity in the form of series. Social stratification. The growing complexity of the economy was expressed in the emergence of a sharply stratified society. While some sections of society had large concentrations of land, there were others who had no access to the means of production. The period is marked by the appearance of such categories as Vaitanika and Karmakaras, Samanas and Brahmans. The religious philosophies. All the major ideas of Indian philosophy can be seen in rudimentary form in the 6th century BC. The philosophers articulated their worldview through their ideas on the one hand and through the institutional practices within which they created in their organizations on the other. The most significant feature common to the philosophies was the renunciation tradition. They wandered above from place to place with the object of meeting and having discussions with others like them. Jainism, basic teachings. Jainism is a living religious faith in India. Though the followers of this religion are found all over the country, they are concentrated mainly in the western India, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Historians have noted the fact that both Jainism and Buddhism originated with Kshatriya belonging to the Gan Sanghas. Both were associated with non-orthodox thinking, which rejected Vedic authority. The founder of Jainism. Both Jainism and Buddhism are fundamentally offshoots from ancient Hinduism. Historically, Jainism is older than Buddhism. Mahavir was a prince. He abandoned a comfortable, pleasurable life and became a wandering ascetic when he was about 30 years old. His father was a ruling Kshatriya and chief of the Nata clan. Mahavir grew up as a boy, as a youth, loving and dutiful to his parents, but ever in his heart is the vow that he had taken to become a savior of the world. Jainism basic teachings. Jainism is fundamentally atheistic in that while not denying the existence of the gods, it does not give them any important part in the universal scheme. Central doctrine. There are two main sects in Jainism, the Digambar, sky-clad, and the Swatambar, white-clad. By the time of separation of these two sects, the doctrine had been fixed for the whole community. The central doctrine to Jainism is that all of nature is alive, everything from rocks to the minute. Insects have some form of a soul called Jiva. The archaic concept of the soul is carried to its extreme conclusion in the teaching. As important as the concept of Jiva is that of non-violence, ahimsa. According to Mahavir, pure, unchanging, eternal law, all things breathing, all things living, all things existing, all beings whatever, should not be slain or treated with violence or driven away. An important economic result of Jain non-violence was even lay members of the society rejected agriculture for fear of plugging under living things and turned instead to commerce and banking regarded as non-violent occupations. Growth of Jainism. In a short span of time, Jainism spread over to various parts of India. Initially, the followers of Jainism lived mainly in the ancient kingdoms of Magad and Og in East India. The influence of Jainism also spread to Dasapura. Sects in Jainism. All living religions accommodate various views within their broad fold. In the process of such accommodation, various sects and subsects emerge. Jain scriptures. The Jain sacred literatures were initially preserved orally from the time of Mahavira. These literatures were systematized by the Jain council from time to time. The Digambars are of the opinion that the original canon of Jainism is lost and that the substance of Mahavira messages contained in the writings of ancient religious figures. Religious practices of the Jains. The religious practices among the Jains are broadly influenced by two interdependent factors, namely the Jain convictions and the Hindu social milieu. Usually, Jains should be the members of fourfold congregation composed of monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. They have deep faith in the Triratan, the right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. They believe that the strict adherence to Tritan will bring liberation from bondage for them. These households also perform some obligatory duties following the examples of lifestyle of the monks, cultivate right state of mind, regularly practice meditation, observe fast on the 8th and 14th days of the month's waxing and waning periods, confess their faults, etc. The Jain ways of life. The Jains are a comparatively small community. They are a powerful community not by its numbers but its purity of life and also by the wealth of its members who are mostly merchants and traders. Though the four Varnas of the Hindus are recognized by the Jains, the vast mass of them are the Vaishyas, the traders, merchants and manufacturers. In northern India, the Jain and the Hindu Vaishyas intermarry and interline. They usually do not regard themselves as of different religion. The Jain ways of life are distinctive and many of which have similarities with Hinduism. Their family life is similar to that of traditional Hindu joint family. They strictly follow monogamous form of marriage and they have a well-defined code of conduct that makes them distinctive. Jains are self-conscious and they should never lose control over their mind and body. The female ascetics are also to follow the same strict rules of conduct. It is a duty of female ascetics to see that Jain women, wives and daughters are properly educated as well. They lay great stress on the education of the women. The Jain festivals. The major festivals of Jains are related to the auspicious occasions of the life of the great masters of Jainism. These occasions are descent in the mother's womb at birth, enunciation and attainment of omniscience, death and final emancipation of Jina. In the last day of this festival, the Jains distribute alms to the poor and take out a procession with the image of Mahavira. A fasting ceremony known as Oli is observed by fasting twice a year. This is observed 9 days each during the month of Saitra, March to April, and Ashwin, September to October. In the Diwali day, the Jains celebrate Nirvana of Mahavir by lighting lamps. The Jnan Panchami, 5 days after Diwali, is celebrated by Jain with temple worship and worship of scriptures in manuscript form. Jain and Hindu religious practices. There are certain important similarities in the beliefs, rituals, and religious practices between Hinduism and Jainism. The Jain philosophy of karma is similar to Hindu doctrine of karma and rebirth. Hinduism has also been widely influenced by the doctrine of ahimsa. Mahatma Gandhi applied Mahavir's doctrine of ahimsa in all spheres of life. In India, the dietary restriction among the Vaishnavas of Hinduism is also a result of Jain influence in Indian society. The Jain rituals are modeled mainly on 16 Hindu sanskara. Jainism has also influenced by Hindu caste order. During the medieval period, several castes arose among the Jains. However, it is to be noted that caste system is not followed by Jain monks. Though features of Hindu caste system such as hierarchy also appear in Jain castes, social differentiation is not so clearly marked. Founder of Buddhism. Buddha was the founder of Buddhism. His family name was Gautam and Siddharth was the name given to him by his parents. He was a prince of the kingdom of Sakyas and Kshatriya or warrior by caste. Siddhartha had a spiritual and humanistic outlook since his childhood. He was married at the age of 16 years with Yoshodhara. The turning point of his life came at 29 when he realized that men are subjected to old age, sickness and death, that human life is suffering. He met various teachers in search of truth. Being unsatisfied, he practiced severe austerity and extreme self-mortification for nearly 6 years. The essence of Buddhism's early preaching was said to be the Four Noble Truths. The truths are: life is fundamentally disappointment and suffering. Suffering is a result of one's desires for power. To stop disappointment and suffering, one must stop desiring. The way to stop desiring and suffering is Noble Eightfold Path. Buddhist social order. Buddha suggested his serious disciples to abandon the ordinary civil life and follow the Eightfold Path in such a life. And two main types of followers are there in Buddhism. The member of the monastic community are to forsake family, occupation and society and lead a solitary life either as anchorites or as members of a monastic community. Second, for the laymen, women, Buddha also laid certain instructions. They are advised to lead a moral life in keeping with demands of the time and to fulfill all duties towards parents, teachers, wives, children, servants, subordinates and ascetics. He suggested 5 commandments for the layman disciples. Break with Brahmanism. Most important, while there were a few ideas that Buddhist philosophy shared with Upanishads thought and with shamanic tradition, Buddha did not merely rehash ideas. His ideas marked an innovative and radical move in the direction of creating a new social philosophy with an enduring appeal for humankind. The demystification of kinship and caste. Both these institutions were considered divinely ordained in Brahmanism. Buddhism opened up immense possibilities for recording social arrangements. The impulse and legitimating for reordering social arrangements could also come from Buddhist emphasis on change. Arrangements for redistribution of surplus through dana. In keeping with dual arrangements of Buddhist social philosophy, one of the world of the Sangha and other for the world outside, it was a central place given to dana or almsgiving. This was a link between the two worlds. Pious laymen maintained the Sangha and others who had renounced the world. The growth, development and decline of Buddhism. The Hinayana, Mahayana and Vajrayana. Buddhist philosophy did not remain static during its long history. Buddhism underwent a massive process of missionary diffusion throughout the Asian world, assimilating new values and undergoing major changes in doctrinal and institutional principles. Buddhism as a religious belief system has undergone several changes. Its original propositions had focused on each individual working towards salvation through path formulated by the Buddha. Neo-Buddhist movement in India. Buddhism is against the Brahmanism social order. It is against the caste-based social inequality. Buddhism has been used as instrument of eradication of ascribed social inequality. He found in Buddhism the message for the uplift of the oppressed in India. He used and interpreted Buddhism as the ideology to bring social equality and justice for the oppressed mass, especially for scheduled castes. Before analyzing the process of decline of Buddhism in India, we should know the similarity between Buddhism and Hinduism. It is significant that these aspects contribute significantly. The idea of transmigration of soul or incarnation is common to both the religions. Both these religions are against taking animal life. It was no doubt permitted to Hindus by epics and in fact prevailed in Vedic times, but was given up under the influence of Buddhism. Buddhism received a setback in the land of its birth. Many of the noble ideas of Hinduism were incorporated in the broad fold of Hinduism, including Buddha himself as the reincarnation of Vishnu. So that was all about Buddhism. These are some of the questions. Write a note on feminine divinities in Buddhism and write a short note on the essence of Buddha's fourfold noble truths. That's all. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.